Live button. So let's wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plains of the internet. Now, I was a little bit skeptical that we were going to be on YouTube because YouTube gave us a strike this weekend, but it looks like we might be alive and well. Let's see. Let's make sure this thing's fired up here. Let's make sure. Looks like it is. And so that means, oh, hang on a second. Yeah, we're still alive and well over there. I think I forgot to connect it to Rumble. So if you're used to watching us on Rumble, I forgot to plug that in there. I apologize. Don't think I can fix that. But the point is, we're alive and well, so let's get started. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gruler. I am a criminal defense attorney here at the R&R Law Group in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona, where my team and I, over the course of many years, have represented thousands of good people facing criminal charges. And throughout our time in practice, we have seen a lot of problems with our justice system. I'm talking about misconduct involving the police. We have prosecutors behaving poorly. We've got judges not particularly interested in a little thing called justice. And it all starts with the politicians, the people at the top, the ones who write the rules and pass the laws that they expect you and me to follow, but sometimes have a little bit of difficulty doing so themselves. That's why we started this show called Watching the Watchers, so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. And we're grateful that you are here and with us today because we've got a lot to get into. And let me check over on YouTube. It looks like we're alive and well there. So that's amazing. What a nice thing. We're going to talk about a lot today. We're going to check in with what's going on with the White House and the CDC, because we know that there's a September 20th kind of a booster deadline that Joe Biden has been talking about for a long time. And now there is seeming to be some tension between the CDC and the White House about that. We know that there were a couple FDA people who left the FDA specifically because there was some contention about what to do with these boosters. We know in other places around the world, they're on their third, fourth, some places. Now it's coming to sort of America. And so we're going to break that down and take a look at some more of the fallout from last week's Joe Biden mandate. We're in mandate season and it's sort of mandate mania. And so Ron DeSantis and other governors are now pushing back. And so we'll take a look at what's going on there. We're also going to talk about the 9/11 documents that came out over the weekend. Of course, many people paused in memory of 9/11. And the FBI, strangely, on September 11th, 20 years after the event took place, the tragedy happened, the FBI came out and released some new documents that might implicate the Saudis, something that people have been concerned about for like 20 years or so. So we'll take a look at those documents, highly redacted, which is kind of the point of the segment. Less about what's in there, more about the idea that it's been 20 years and everything is still being redacted. Quite annoying. So we're going to talk about that. And then our last segment, we have one of the most wild situations involving a judge that I've ever read. We have a criminal complaint for a Judge Newell. Judge Newell is no longer with us, died by suicide on September 10th, and the U.S. Justice Department from Maryland came out and released the criminal complaint. So we're going to be able to take a look at that. Involved the exploitation of underage individuals in a shower in Maryland. And so we're going to take a look at that case. It is like out of an HBO series or a true crime series. If you're a true crime person, you're going to love that last segment because it is wild. All right. And so if you want to be a part of the show, the place to do that is over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. They're chatting away over there. Jeremy Matreed is in the house. Look 2G. We've got Farmer's Daughter. D-Rod Rig is in the house. We have Look 2G and many others chatting away. We also, over on YouTube, have Zulus in the house. We've got Andrew Richardson, Danette. We got Trump One Bigley in the house. We got K-Bean, Lean. We have Blue Devil. Lean's asking, Rob, tell us what happened with YouTube. We're going to get there, Lean. And we've got Marty Lund, Raheem L., and many others all chatting away on YouTube, which is crazy because we're not supposed to be here on YouTube today because they gave us a strike, which we're going to talk about next. Before we get there, quick reminder, if you're looking for any of the segments on the show, then that they are over on a new YouTube channel. This is what it looks like. Robert Gruler, ESQ. Clips is the Clips channel. And if you're over on Locals, then you'll remember this form, of course, the watchingthewatchers.locals.com form. If you want to be a part of the show, then you can go ahead and use that form, and we'll do our very best to make sure we get to all the questions of the day. All right, so before we get into the news of the day, I want to give you a quick update on YouTube. Over the weekend, I got an email from YouTube, looked like this, said, Robert Gruler Live, team has reviewed your content. We think it violates our medical misinformation policy. And so they removed the content right off the YouTube. They didn't even, ask me about anything. It's gone. I woke up and it was deleted. You can see it right here was the Joe Rogan medical hoax was the email that I got. And if you were with us on Friday, I was sort of not feeling really well. I'm still sort of recovering from that. You can kind of hear it in my chest. It's not COVID. Got a test. It's not COVID. But it is still a chest cold, and I still have to deal with it. So we have been I was, after the show on Friday, quite sick, and I just kind of went to bed and called it a day. Woke up Saturday, got this email, and was not real happy about it. I said, wait a minute, that wasn't medical misinformation. What was happening on Anderson Cooper's show was medical misinformation. You recall that the whole segment was about the idea being that Joe Rogan took a particular drug. CNN and many other people in the media were having a lot of fun with it and slam dunking on the guy, saying, well, he took horse dewormer. And that was not the case at all. That was actual medical misinformation because that's not what he took. He took a human drug prescribed for human beings, and it was totally prescribed by a doctor. So what Anderson Cooper was doing, saying this was all horse dewormer, was completely fraudulent, wasn't accurate at all, was dishonest, and that's what that video was about. We just kind of went through the history of that particular drug, talked about it in other areas, even when the CDC was using it for refugees, many of whom were coming across from Afghanistan. So we know that this is a drug that they use regularly, but they were trying to just sort of spread medical misinformation about Joe Rogan using horse dewormer. It was insane. YouTube said, we know this might be disappointing, but it's important to us that YouTube is a safe place for all. If your content breaks our rules, we remove it. And if you think we've made a mistake, you can appeal. Now, I did not appeal. They say how your content violated policy. YouTube does not allow content that spreads medical misinformation. So I don't know what CNN is doing allowed on YouTube because that was clearly medical misinformation, but they're saying contradicting local health authorities, the WHO or CDC, those types of things. So they gave me over the weekend on Saturday morning one strike, said you're not going to be able to do things. You can't live stream for 1 week. Second strikes, a second strike would extend that to 2 weeks and all blah, blah, blah. So, okay. Got that in the email, said, all right, I guess this is going to be sort of how this goes in the foreseeable future. So I went over to Twitter and I said, all right, let's just tell everybody about this. Let's make sure that they're aware of what YouTube did. And so I posted this over on Twitter, said, hey, my Joe Rogan segment debunking the media horse dewormer hoax earned me a strike and a 7-day suspension from YouTube. And I posted that over there. I also linked, thankfully, we've been building a second parallel platform. I talk about parallel systems just in case we need some redundancies. And so I posted the link over to the Rumble video, which was still live at the time. When YouTube removes stuff from your channel, they just remove it, right? The link's dead, video's dead. You go into your channel and you just see a grayed out sort of box. It says, violation, you're illegal. And they removed the video. So fortunately, we've been backing all of our stuff up over to Rumble. And so we posted that link. Now take a look at this. On Rumble, we had on this tweet, we had 1,000 likes, 306 retweets. So that means that a lot of people were clicking this link, weren't they? Probably a lot more people than might otherwise go over to my Rumble channel. That's for sure. We don't have a big following over there. Let's take a look from our channel list. You can see I posted about a Jacob Chansley plea deal, and we got 105 views. That's it. We did a whole video. We did a whole live stream over there. Guilty, right? That's a whole live stream. 418 views. Nobody's watching over there. They're all watching on YouTube. Down here, Arbery prosecutor indicted, 213 views. 99 views for Biden's terrible job report. But guess what happened? Joe Rogan media dewormer hoax, 3,500 views, 3,500 views. So we're talking, orders of magnitudes, more views of that video than it would have otherwise gotten. And it was seen by a lot more people now because of that. They call that the Streisand effect. Ronnie Cole just said, Rob is such a criminal. That's true. I am harmful and dangerous, according to YouTube. So now let's take a look at what happened on Twitter, right? So we got a lot more views on that video, thanks to YouTube's censorship. And then when I tweeted about it, I was pretty upset about it, but a lot of other people were pretty upset about it. And these are what some of the Twitter impressions look like. You can see this, almost 1 million views, probably 1 million impressions now that I took the screenshot a few hours ago. 1 million impressions, 68,000 total engagement, media clicks, 31,000 media clicks, and different likes and followers and all of that stuff. And so almost 1 million people then saw that. And so I got to thank Twitter for that. I got a lot of thank yous to send around here in a minute. But I want to show you what happened when I went back over to YouTube. So all of that happened, right? I wake up on Friday night, I'm sick, I go to bed, I wake up on Saturday morning, I get out there, I start tweeting away. I'm like, these SOBs, they are taking away perfectly good videos that are not medical misinformation at all. It's rebutting the medical misinformation from the mainstream media. And they deleted the video. So I said, those SOBs. I got on Twitter, fired off the tweet, and I basically checked out the rest of the day. I mean, I really was not available. And then the next morning on Sunday, I woke up and I saw these types of numbers. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, right? This thing has just gone off the hook, which is very exciting. And so I was still planning that we were going to be enjoying our 7-day strike. And then I woke up and I went to my channel today, Monday, and I looked at this and I said, oh, it says here, you still have a community guideline strike. That was from September 11th, 3:48 a.m. when we got that one. But then when I go to try to appeal it, nothing's there anymore. And then when I go and I check my channel, oh, look, there it is. Right here, they put it back. They brought it back forward and they made it public again. So Joe Rogan is back now on our channel and the strike has been removed and we're back in business. And so just want to say thank you to everybody. Big thank yous to everybody. Big thank yous to Twitter for all the retweets. I know that there was a lot of people were reaching out and lending some support, and I really, really appreciate that. I posted over on Locals. I said thank you to the Locals community. I said thankfully we have a little bit of a redundancy, a community that we've built that's better in many ways than YouTube. And so if YouTube wants to throw us off for a week, no problem. That's all right. We'll just have some more spicy conversations over on Locals. And so thank you to them. Thank you to YouTube for making the right decision, right? Thank you for coming through and correcting your mistake of removing that video. Thanks for adhering to your actual policies. We're just here on the show trying to do our best, trying to communicate with people and share different ideas. That's all we're intending to do. Thanks for recognizing that and putting our work back up. Thank you to everybody. Big shout outs. I got some special shout outs to Eric Hunley. Shout outs to Allison Morrow, People's Pundit. They were over on Twitter, sent me messages, sent me emails, gave us some really substantial retweets, and I appreciate that. And normally I don't like to go into a lot of the back and forth on the show, but this was a kind of an interesting thing that happened. So I wanted to share that with you and just thank you everybody for your support on that. All right. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get right into the news of the day, shall we? Let me get a quick cough out of the way first. All right. Now we're ready to rock and roll. And we're going to start off by getting right back into the Joe Biden stuff. Tensions mount between the CDC and Joe Biden. We know last week Joe Biden came out and told all Americans that they're going to be getting the vaccine mandates. It's coming down through your employers. If you haven't been vaccinated, brace yourself because winter is coming. It's coming out of the White House and it is coming with fury. Now, Joe Biden in that same speech told us about the vaccine mandates, but also told us about these booster shots that were supposed to be coming somewhere around September 20th and actually use that date. This has been a hard date that they've been working towards for some period of time. And we've been seeing booster shots being rolled out all in different parts of the country. We know Israel's using them and other parts of the world as well. And so there was a little bit of a back and forth about, does America need this? The World Health Organization has been saying things like there is sort of a vaccine disparity happening around the world and vaccines should be redistributed to other more needy parts of the world. Americans don't need a third shot yet. There are other people who haven't had one or two. And so a lot of disagreement about this. And now, as the deadline is coming up, just 7 days away, we're seeing some tensions flare. Politico is reporting that senior officials from the White House and the FDA say the CDC is withholding critical data needed to develop the booster plan. So top Biden officials are now increasingly clashing with the CDC as the administration pushes for distributing booster shots widely by September 20th. Right? And this is when Joe Biden came out and told us, okay, booster shots are coming September 20th, and the CDC is not ready for that yet. In meetings and conversations over the past month, senior officials from the White House and the FDA have accused repeatedly the CDC of withholding critical data needed to develop the booster shot plan, delaying work on Joe Biden's agenda for the vaccination campaign, making it more difficult to set clear expectations for the public, which they've been doing a horrible job of for the last year. While particularly frustrating occurred last month, two officials said when the agency appeared to publicly reject the administration's plan, CDC Director Fauci and Walesnky had joined other top health officials in signing a high-profile statement on August 18th endorsing the approach. Okay, so August 18th, Fauci and Walesnky comes out, signs off on it. 2 weeks later then, when it came time for the CDC to make the case for boosters, to an advisory panel. Senior officials argued priority then should be given to nursing home residents, frontline health workers, and then other groups based on their vulnerability. Okay, so look, we've known that the messaging from the White House has been terrible over the last 9 months, and arguably before that, but we're talking about this administration. Right now, what we're seeing is a lot of flip-flops, right? Take the masks off, put the masks on. If you're vaxxed, you still got to wear a mask. But then if you're vaxxed, take the mask off. Now we're talking the same thing. Joe Biden came out and said unequivocally, booster shots are coming September 20th. And now the CDC is saying, well, hold on a minute. We're trying to sort of reassess all of this and determine what deserves the top priority. The CDC, Walesnky, has fiercely defended the CDC throughout the last several weeks, telling White House officials who have pledged for months to follow the science that late September booster target was likely too ambitious. Her agency hadn't completed the studies yet that are going to provide the rationale for the shots. CDC and FDA also still waiting on data from Moderna and Johnson & Johnson. Other CDC officials working on the pandemic response equally exasperated. Science takes time, said some CDC official. One senior official from the Biden administration said that the CDC is getting out what it can when it can, but a second senior health administration official pushed back on the idea that the September 20 booster target was foisted on the CDC. Said basically, no, they agreed to it. So the CDC now is sort of pushing back against the White House and the FDA about these booster shots. And, there are some people who are saying that they're not even needed at this point in time. New York Times is reporting, saying in a new review, some FDA scientists and others say boosters aren't needed yet. This was posted September 13th by Apoorva Mandavali, says none of the data on coronavirus vaccines so far provides credible evidence to support boosters for the general population. This is according to an article, a review published on Monday by an international group of scientists. 18 authors, this was published over in the Lancet, I believe, the same Lancet that Dr. Daszak wrote in, so you can make a decision about whether that makes sense or not. But two authors, Dr. Philip Krauss, Dr. Marian Gruber, kind of sounds like Gruler, huh? FDA scientists, they announced last month they're leaving. They both left, they bailed, in part because they disagreed with the Biden administration's push for boosters before federal scientists could review the evidence. Biden administration proposed those boosters 8 months after the original shot. I think that's down now to 6 months now. But many scientists have opposed the plan, saying vaccines are still powerfully protective against serious illness. So the FDA then is going to meet on Friday, and they're going to review the data. So now conversations about the booster shots. We know that, like I said, elsewhere around the world, they're already on the subscription plan, just every 6 months, 8 months or so, just go and get another one. We've talked a lot about the pill that's being now prepared, I think by Pfizer and many other agencies. And so kind of just going to be a thing, right? Just a perpetual thing indefinitely, which we're going to get to later when we have an article from Dr. Scott Gottlieb. Before we get there now, we have of course, America's favorite doctor, the truth purveyor of decency. We have now Dr. Anthony Fauci here, was over the weekend, and he had a couple different things that he shared with us. Let's listen to let's see what he had to say about vaccines. Here is Fauci.
If we get the overwhelming proportion of the population vaccinated, we will get to herd immunity.
Okay.
If we do it in the next 6 months, it will happen in the next 6 months.
Got it.
If we do it in the next 2 months, it'll happen in the next 2 months. I would support that. If you want to get on a plane and travel with other people, that you should be vaccinated. When you hear us say, should you mandate vaccination for children to be able to attend school, some people say, oh my goodness, that would be terrible to do that. But we already do that and have been doing that for decades and decades. I don't know what school you went to, but the school that I went to, you had to be vaccinated for measles, mumps, rubella, polio, or otherwise you couldn't go to school. So it is not something new to mandate vaccines for school children. The solution that we have at our hands is vaccines.
All right, so there's the Fauci, and what he's talking about is several different things, right? The first question that I have, of course, is what is the overwhelming portion of the community mean? What does that mean, right? He's talking about vaccinations now. Last week, we talked a lot about Fauci. He was very opposed to vaccine mandates, say we never do that. We've never done that nationally. Now, flip-flops, he's 100% on board. We need this everywhere. We need this on airplanes. We need this in schools. he is Mr. Vaccine now. He happened, that changed pretty quickly. Of course, we've all known this is exactly where this is going, but we're here now. Then he makes a separate argument, and we're going to get to that first point in a minute. What is the overwhelming portion? What does that mean? When are we going to be over this thing? What is going to make Fauci happy? And that we can stop all of these seizures of everybody's civil rights, all of these mandates requiring people to do things from the government, right? That are outside of their volition. People don't want to do these things. They're being forced and coerced and acting under duress in order to go do these things. Whether it's right or wrong, whether you agree with the vaccine or not, whether you think it's the best thing in the world or not, the problem is people being forced to go do something that they don't want to do. This is America. Freedom is still something that should exist in this country. That is inappropriate. And you might be able to convince them, communicate to them, have a conversation with them to encourage them to go and get the vaccine. If you think it's the miracle, God's miracle to the planet, that's fine. You can have those conversations. But when you use the strong arm of the government to go in and force people to do it, that's a separate conversation. That's exactly what Fauci's doing. Then he very nicely sort of transitions into this measles, mumps, rubella, polio thing. And I started to do some research on this earlier in the show when I was expecting that we were going to be only on locals. And so some of that stuff I think is a little bit too meaty to talk about here on YouTube. But the general thought process here is measles and rubella are essentially kind of, very similar, diseases. And I looked through all of those. And it reminded me of that clip from that doctor who was talking in front of that school. The person who was saying, oh, well, the reason those vaccines are very beneficial is because measles, mumps, rubella, polio, they don't have animal reservoirs. They don't live in animals, just like the coronavirus does. And I had a bunch of slides, which I shouldn't even be talking about it. But, animals are getting infected with the coronavirus all over the place. And so the idea here being that we're going to ever go back down into COVID zero is not appropriate. It's not scientifically accurate because of the fact that there are animal reservoirs and, the different viruses can permeate and live in the real world without ever going down to zero, which is exactly what he's arguing apples and oranges. The coronavirus is not like measles, mumps, rubella, and polio. It's just not the same thing, but it is the language that these people are using. They're trying to sort of bundle everything up to fit their arguments. You've been getting vaccines since you're just a kid. Yeah, but that was a whole different situation. It was a whole entirely different biological threat. Measles, mumps, rubella, polio, chickenpox. Those are different than a coronavirus that mutates all. Anyways, okay, so you get the point on that. There's Dr. Fauci. And then he talks about, more of the plain mandates, and the list goes on and on. Now, I was thinking back and reading from Alex Berenson. He's over on Substack. And I was thinking about the timeline from Dr. Fauci and what he's been talking about over the last year. And so his sort of goalposts have been moving very, very, very frequently. Many of us have been asking for years now, when is this thing going to be over? Are we going to be done with this? Is there ever going to be a point where these megalomaniacal bureaucrats like Fauci, Biden, Walensky, all of them, are they ever going to be satiated? Are they ever going to be happy? Are they ever going to say, okay, enough. Yeah, you're right. It's done. Good job, team. Pat themselves on the back, pack up the bags, and go home for the day. Are they ever going to do that? I have never thought that was going to be the case because it's more than just saving grandma, right? It's also about political control and about reshaping the country to ensure that there is a sort of a never-ending supply of power for the people who are creating the systems that give them that power. All right. So Fauci has been saying for months now, years now, that this is all going to be over soon. And so what I did is I put together a timeline here. You can see Alex Berenson over at Substack did the heavy lifting on this, but we got a quick article here from Fauci. November 12th, 2020. We're talking about the end of the pandemic. Coming up on a year from when he said this, Fauci says the end to the pandemic is in sight. Why? Thanks to vaccines. This was right after the election, posted on November 12th, 2020. Of course, the vaccines came out in December. Joe Biden got vaxxed. Kamala Harris got vaxxed, even though in October they were saying that you shouldn't get vaxxed if Trump came out with it, because in October, it was an October surprise. The vaccine was a political tool. But in December, after they won, no longer a political problem. Now, the vaccine's the greatest thing in the world. So they were the first people who were sort of sowing doubt, sowing discord in the vaccine. And now they're, pushing it everywhere they go. They're mandating it, literally. Point is, back in November 12, 2020, Fauci came out, said, pandemic end is in sight. says that the coronavirus could remain endemic, though, says Fauci. So November 12th. All right, what else do we have? Fauci comes back out then on December 15th, 1 month later. Oh, he says Fauci predicts that we could see the signs of herd immunity by late March or early April. That was December 15th. So that would have been March or April 2021 after the vaccines came out. Okay, well, so we kind of passed that deadline. So he was pretty much dead wrong on that, wasn't he? Because we had the Delta wave, we have vaccine mandates now. The whole thing is continuing on. So we certainly don't have herd immunity to his satisfaction. Let's see what else happened then. Fast forward a couple months, March 11th comes down the pike. Fauci gives a sunnier outlook for the end of the pandemic. Oh, good. We're going to be done with this thing soon. U.S. will see big difference by the summer or early fall. That's great news. Dr. Fauci on March 11th said by this summer, or at least by early fall, which is now, we're going to be seeing a big difference. U.S. will progress towards some sort of normalcy by mid to late summer or early fall. Are vaccine mandates that are unconstitutionally being peddled through obscure OSHA statutes, is that normal? Well, because that's what happened last week, and we're kind of getting into the fall here. Certainly the late summer, Dr. Fauci, and that doesn't seem to be normal to me. In fact, it seems to be the opposite of normal. It seems to be a regression, like we're going the wrong direction, not the right direction. And at least in terms of civil liberties, things that are important to Americans, like the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. So those things are pretty important. March 11th, 2021 is when he said that. So dead wrong about that. Doesn't look like we're out of this anytime soon. And so now the Dr. Fauci is out here saying, no end to the pandemic before spring 22 at the earliest. So it's just going to go on forever. Spring 22, and we're going to get to spring 22. Oh, don't have herd immunity. Those damned anti-vaxxers, those damn unvaccinated people are going to be out there wrecking it for the rest of us. And so they're always going to have a scapegoat. Always. And it's going to continue to go on basically indefinitely. And if you think I'm joking about that, I'm not. Dr. Scott Gottlieb agrees with that. Says a second major seasonal virus won't leave us any choice. Dr. Scott Gottlieb, if you're not familiar with this guy, he's an American physician. You may have seen him. This is what he looks like. This is from Wikipedia. He was the FDA Food and Drug Administrator under Trump. Okay, so it's not even partisan here, right? This crosses party lines. These are all people who are saying this is how it's going to be for the future, for the indefinite future. And look, at some point, I think you got to listen to him. Scott Gottlieb says, he was born. Let's get some background on him before we read through his article, because he gives us some prognostications here. He is an American physician. He's an investor. He was a commissioner of the FDA from April 2017 until April 2019. So he just got out of there before the coronavirus hit in full. He's got a book coming out, so of course he's promoting that. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and he's been a resident. Yeah, he advises the committees. So he's an advisor, a doctor and an advisor. He wrote a big article in The Atlantic today. Not going to go through it in its entirety, but I did want to show a couple things. He's saying a second major seasonal virus won't leave us any choice. Oh, well, what the hell is he talking about? A second seasonal virus? I thought we were just worried about one virus. No, it's two now. Businesses and schools must adapt because of the dual threat from COVID and the flu. It's going to be too severe. Can't handle it. Yeah, the United States medical system can't handle it. It's too severe. We got the COVID and the flu. We've had 2 years to prepare for this thing. The same America that floated up sunken battleships from Pearl Harbor and flew them back over there and crammed them up our enemy's rear ends, like in a matter of time, right? The same country that built the Manhattan Project in record time. For some reason, we can't figure out healthcare in the United States. Now, these days, it's gonna, the flu and the coronavirus are going to wreck us. Okay. The pandemic will eventually be over, he says, and the Delta surge, in which most of those not yet unvaccinated are going to become infected. But just because we're eager to move on doesn't mean the virus is finished with us yet. So I guess we're just going to have to do whatever the virus says. The virus is not finished with us. So we're just going to have to keep doing whatever the virus says, just like good little slaves. In our large, open, and globally connected society, getting to COVID zero, like Australia and New Zealand have pursued, is politically unrealistic and biologically implausible. No stinking kidding. Americans are mostly done with the onerous shutdowns that would require The virus has spread so widely in the world that even tight, long-lasting limits on Americans' movements, restrictions far beyond what we would tolerate, could not stamp it out entirely. Instead, COVID is going to become an endemic virus, settling alongside with 4 strains of coronaviruses that circulate widely amongst us. So that's going to be just how it is, right? That's the doctor. Now he says, right, and he makes some good points that I actually agree with him on those points. Yeah, right. We've known that for a long time now. The idea that we were going to have lockdowns and the idea that we're going to all put masks on our face and the coronavirus is going to evaporate tomorrow is insane. That's what we've all been saying. That's why all these stupid lockdowns and stupid restrictions have not been useful other than to wreck people's businesses, cause people to commit suicide, and cause all sorts of other wreckage in the world. Cough break. So now we have Gottlieb, who I think is right, recognizing that this is going to be, in fact, endemic. We're just going to have to deal with it. And so America, time to now brace for coronavirus and the flu. He goes through, he gives us some numbers, says that total burden on flu is 11 billion a year. It costs people 3.7 to 5.9 days per year. Respiratory infections stand at 40 billion. Yeah, I've got a respiratory infection. I've got one right now. Can you hear it in my lungs? I have a cough button. I'm coughing my lungs out. It's just part of life, right? This is just how it is, right? That's what living in the real world does to you. You get sick, you bump into people. It's how it is. Reducing these threats start with more aggressive efforts. This is where it all goes south, right? Reducing these threats start with more aggressive efforts to get people vaccinated for flu and COVID alike. So he goes from somebody who is sort of recognizing that this is just kind of how life is going to be, to now flipping, we got to get more aggressive with this stuff. Work-related vaccine mandates for both diseases are going to be more common. I should note that I serve on Pfizer's board of directors. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, thanks for the notation there. For people in industries where telecommuting is possible, stop going into work. During peak flu and COVID season, businesses should reduce density. Conferences should be shifted months to months where there are less respiratory pathogens in the air. More Zoom meetings. Don't go back to your office. The impact on productivity, we already talked about that. Says that as we transition from the pandemic to the endemic phase, no bright lines divide these two states. We'll straddle the two through this winter. Our progress is going to feel uncertain and disorderly, yet more widespread adoption of vaccines will give Americans growing confidence. He says in our last paragraph here, says, during the shift from a pandemic emergency, fights over how forcefully we deal with COVID's acute risk will morph into debates over how we adjust society to reduce the virus's persistent perils. Yeah, we're having that conversation right now. The twin burden of the flu and COVID is going to compel more collective action. We've been too far complacent with the cold and the season with the seasonal flu. It kills too many people each year. With a second serious disease in the picture, we're going to be forced to take action, which is just like a wild thing. So now we have COVID and the flu. And so even if it's not COVID, it's going to be the flu, right? And you got to go get your flu vaccines now. And everybody's just going to have to just bubble wrap themselves everywhere they go in the world. So we have some governors, some people around the country who are pushing back on this. Here is Governor Ron DeSantis saying we've already addressed this, and we've already passed a law in Florida that says if you mandate vaccines, you get penalized for that. So try it. Here is Ron DeSantis.
Session, SB 2006, that did a lot of different things. It prevented private businesses from requiring proof of vaccination to just do normal things like go to a movie or go to a restaurant, vaccine passports, but that also applied to government agencies. And so if a government agency in the state of Florida forces a vaccine as a condition to employment, that violates Florida law, and you will face... And you will face a $5,000 fine for every single violation. And so if you look at places here in Alachua County, like the city of Gainesville, I mean, that's millions and millions of dollars potentially in fines. Orange County, many, many more than that. At the end of the day, look, we did a lot in Florida.
All right, so there's DeSantis, right? DeSantis is out there saying, if you're a government entity, you can't do that. We've passed a law. Now, what he's doing there, of course, doesn't distinguish between private businesses or anything, right? It's government, and he's controlling the government, so he's entitled to do that. But you're going to see more and more of this. You're going to see more states, more legislators, legislatures, more attorneys general all standing up against this stuff, and even some lawsuits coming down the pike soon enough. I know that Katz over on Locals shared with us a lawsuit from the LAPD even. We've got some people over on Locals communicating specifically about some unification that's happening in a pushback against their mandates. So let's take a look and see what you have to say about this over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We've got our first one here from former LEO. Says, this is the story, I hope, about the hospital that mandated vaccines and 6 nurses resigned and forced the maternity ward to close. I guess that we can still protest by denying our services. Unless Biden mandates that resignations are outlawed, the Democrats had it right. Resist. I also went on Facebook to try to use resist shorts from 2016. That's from former LEO. Good to see you there, former LEO. Thanks for chiming in and sharing that article. I think I did see that. A lot of people are resigning or threatening to resign. We have Deadmau5 says, and my name is Robert Gruler. Are you sure that's not disinformation? Glad the YouTube overlords corrected themselves due to some banging on the hypocrisy as well as banging on the table, no doubt. We did, and I'm very grateful for everybody who supported that message, right? I was just going to post it on Twitter just as a notification. Hey, guys, don't go to YouTube. And I woke up on Sunday, and it had gone crazy, and I'm so grateful that we're back. We're broadcasting. We're back in business. We have another one from Monster One says, YouTube was like, we'll take your strike away if you quit using Rumble. Just joking. Glad to see you escape the gulag. Strike usually means you said something truthful. Kind of expected them to lift the strike because a lot of people were talking about Rogan and they didn't get strikes. Somebody on Twitter told me that in one of the live streams there were a group of people saying that they were going to report all the videos. So maybe we just got reported and that's all it was. Schnookum says, YouTube actually followed an entire regimen including IV and monoclonal antibodies. That's on the Rogan video. Monster One says, I'm disappointed you didn't immediately file an appeal. You are a lawyer after all. Isn't that what y'all do? It is, but that's not the court of law. That's the court of YouTube. And I don't like to play in kangaroo courts. Sergeant Bob says the inmates seem to be running the asylum. The question is, who are the inmates? The most confused bunch of political appointees in U.S. history. They're trying to do a balancing act, right? They've got politics over here, and they've got science over here. And these are the same people who've been sort of trying to mesh the two together and say, science is do our political thing. And they cover it in science. And now they're having a real debacle because the science isn't matching the politics. And they're having to debate that out. We have another one from D. Rodriguez says, so people need a third booster based on a spike protein? If the first 2 didn't work, why would you get a third? That's from D. Rodriguez. Schnookum says, and I'm careful on some of the medical stuff. Schnookum says, I believe the potential OSHA mandate is only after another unfunded mandate to force weekly testing costs, burdens on businesses, and then coerce them to require the vax to save money. Also, the OSHA mandate seems to be another, quote, emergency. Yep, it is. It makes me believe that such a mandate could only exist while the emergency exists. And like the EUA drops out of enforcement once the HHS emergency is canceled. Yeah, they did, right? That allows them to bypass the regular rulemaking process. That was specific. I mean, that's why they use that rule. Schnookum says, it may be as unconstitutional as the eviction mandate. I agree with you. I think it should be. We have John permanently suspended. Halgren is in the house, suspended from Twitter for pushing buttons over there. Speaking of disease vectors, unless you eradicate white-tailed deer, this never goes away. Yeah, I saw this one earlier there, John. Let's pull this one up. There are now deer. Why isn't that working? That's not working. I saw a headline that there are now deer that are infected with the coronavirus, right? So it's everywhere. So unless you're going to go vaccinate all the wild deer, it's going to be around a while. We have another one from Monster One says, they keep talking about the vaccine kids already get while ignoring several key facts. We know a lot about those vaccines. They've been around for decades. Comparing a vaccine less than a year old to one with decades of databases is asinine. Yeah, yeah, and that, so I made a chart, right? And I was comparing and contrasting. Measles, predominantly children. Mumps, predominantly children. COVID, predominantly adults, right? So one of these things is not like the others. All right, we have another one from Boom. Says, I seriously suspect that people have lost their damn minds. Probably. We just got notice email that my employer will be following the OSHA requirement, requiring vaccines for all employees as soon as it's published. Sight unseen. Nothing about boosters, exemptions, just a whole load of stress and misery for the people who are now left hanging. Of course, what can I expect from a company who applauded an employee shouting about too many white faces being in the employee directory? I can only assume that people who are miserable and encompassed in fear want to create as much fear and misery as possible. That's from Boom. I agree with that. I think a lot of the people who are out there are virtue signaling to some degree, and it makes people without a lot of meaning in their lives feel suddenly extremely meaningful. Right now, everything becomes a life or death situation. And so people who were, the biggest problem they had all day was about, what to watch on Netflix. And there's a huge portion of the country that is that, right? They're not highly invested in life. Let's just leave it at that. Now they are, right? Now they've been called to action and they have a cause to fight for. And they're going to be vaccine warriors. And anybody else out there who doesn't fall into their little silo is now a monster and an enemy. And it gives them a lot of passion and a lot of vigor. Whereas the rest of us just want to be left the hell alone. Can you just leave us the hell alone so we can go back to work and just do what we want to do? Okay. If you want to go be a hyperventilator somewhere else, that's fine. Go do it. But let us just live our lives. If I want to go get the vaccine, I can go get it. But if you sit there and pressure me to do it, that causes a whole different cascade of consequences, rightfully so. Because now what you're doing is you're crossing lines, constitutional lines. You're crossing lines about people being able to feed their families. So they're going to respond, and they should. We have another one coming in from Avalon Acres. Says, they sprayed kids for years with DDT until someone questioned the science. Right. Yeah, we'll get into that. That's another one, right? It's always scientific and 100% infallible until it's not. Then it becomes a problem. Sergeant Bob says, the more I hear about mandates to use public support like airplanes, the more I like traveling via Miss Lucky's big Dodge $2,500 diesel truck. Retirees need not be in a hurry. No stinking masks in our truck. Love fossil fuels. That's Sergeant Bob. I think he's making his way down into Arizona sometime soon. Safe travels, Bob. We got Che Guevara says, I don't know what everyone else is complaining about. Here in the Republic of Cuba, we started giving COVID-19 vaccines to 2-year-olds. That's from Che Guevara. That's good. So you've got many people on the left. They have a nice role model there. Schnookums says, kids, vaccines, and diseases. Why do you think they maintain control of those viruses at places like USAMRID, and they must be ordered to facilitate research? Because they don't exist in the wild because of your animal point. That's from Schnookums, the animal reservoirs. We have Jack, and look, of course, listen to the CDC, not me. Jack Elias says, Rob, can you ask Fauci how he's doing with that HIV vaccine he was demanding we wait for back in the early 1980s? I think, did he move on from that one? Did that one come about? Not sure. Wants to know says, Rob, you think people are going to get banned from YouTube for talking about Bill of Rights, normal freedoms we used to have? I think just the act of talking alone, right? Free speech. Just being able to communicate an idea. YouTube is, in my opinion, now the public square. So is Twitter and TikTok. Those are all the public squares now. Speech should be encouraged and accepted. Vientikis says, we got to do this because the virus, don't ask questions. We got to do this because God, don't ask questions. The culmination of hundreds of years of selective breeding of the human race. That's from Vientikis. We have the last villain says, the administration still hasn't nominated an FDA commissioner. Seems like something that would be a priority. Is Biden and the cult trying to push through stuff without actual oversight and accountability? 2 senior FDA officials resigning was all I needed to hear. Scott Gottlieb is on the board of Pfizer, but is presented as an unbiased arbiter. Yeah, right. Right. They're all getting rich, man. They're all getting rich. Look at the Moderna numbers. And listen, the vaccines might also be saving a ton of lives. It's okay to win and help win, to do well while doing good, right? You can do all of that. But it is a conflict of interest, right? We're not crazy for pointing that out. All right. We have another one here from The Last Villains. Oh, wait, we got that one from The Last Villain. We have another one from DG McBride says, Fauci, the CDC, et al., they keep lowering their standard for the definition of a vaccine. In the case of a COVID vaccine, means you can contract the disease, but it will be a mild case. My question is, has anyone ever heard of a mild case of polio? Clearly, the COVID vaccine is getting a lot of slack for reasons no one seems to be able to explain. Yeah, that's right. Correct. Like, do we have rolling variants of polio? or measles or mumps. Like, it's a different category that we're talking about here. All right. We have another one from I'm Not Gas says, COVID is here to stay. 10 years in, we're still going to be saying, well, looks like it's a bad COVID season this year. Yeah, you're going to have a bunch of people out there. It's going to be the new water cooler talk. You know, it's like, see the game last night? There wasn't a game on. No, it's just something you say. You know, this rain's pretty nice. Yeah, it's nice. Pretty bad COVID season. I know. Got 35 jabs this month. All right. Here to stay. This war on the unvaxxed, I think, is an attempt by the government to shift the blame away from them. Yes, even though in reality, nothing would have stopped this inevitability. Once the reality of the situation settles in on the general public, they're going to be out for blood. They're going to redirect that rage to their fellow citizens rather than the government. It's in their best interest, I guess. I'm Not Gas. Brilliant comment, I'm Not Gas. Right, because remember, Joe Biden's entire campaign was on beating the coronavirus. I have a plan. I'm going to shut down the virus, not shut down the economy. Americans believe that. Many of them voted for him. Now, many of them are going, I got to do what to stay employed here? What? I have to do all of these things? And now my taxes are going up, and now America's military looks like it just got emasculated. You know, this is not a good situation. And now many people are going to be looking at this and saying, I'm mad. I'm angry about this. Joe Biden told us that he was going to shut down the virus. He didn't. Now I'm unemployed and unvaccinated. What am I supposed to do? So where does that go? Well, Joe Biden needs to find a new scapegoat. And that is now you and me. It's the people out there who are oppositional to the U.S. government mandating that they shove stuff into their bodies. Again, whether you want it or not, whether you believe it or not, whether it works or it doesn't, I don't care about any of that. It's the fact that the government is interfering in everybody's lives and mandating it. Not appropriate. It's going to backfire. And that is the political calculation I think that they're making. They know that they're not going to be able to deliver on their promises. They know that at the next debate, it's going to be, oh gosh, this was a train wreck of an administration. So they got to blame somebody else. It's going to be the unvaxxed. It's going to be our stupid citizens are just too stupid. And we'll see where that goes for him. I think it's not going to go well. Schnookum said, I am forced to remind others that unlike Biden's speech that says his job is to protect Americans, I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of the presidency and will to the best of my ability preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. Sounds like his job is in the Constitution. It is, but he doesn't care about that, Schnookums. It's a nice attempt, but he doesn't care. Avalon says 13 gorillas at the Atlanta Zoo test positive for COVID. In a statement posted to the zoo's website, officials said they believe vaccinated member of its animal care team who was wearing personal protective equipment and asymptomatic when she came to work probably transmitted the virus. So what you say is PPE and the jab are 100% working. Yep. Yeah, so for all the people out there who are like, if you come around my children and you're unvaccinated, you're going to kill them. Did they vaccinate their cat and their dog also? Be curious to see. We have some more here from 503 Unlimited says if it's considered endemic, then the governmental emergency powers need to be revoked in all these tyrannical states. It's a good point, 503. Do you think they're ever going to give that up? Do you? I don't. We have another one from Nadarb says, Ron DeSantis ain't scared. Who said that? He ain't scared. That's Ron. Ron's fired up. Sergeant Bob says the feds will try to invoke, quote, supremacy. That concept was developed in early USA, addressing foreign trade making war. The founding fathers never intended it to interfere with the state governments. Yeah, there's a lot that they didn't intend, and we're right in the thick of it. Thanks, Sergeant. We have It's Ed says, Rob, sorry you got that cough. There was a time I used to cough to hide a fart, but now I fart to hide a cough. Oh. I literally hold my breath and force myself not to cough if I'm in public. I need those evil stares. I have a problem with the government mandates on both sides. I do not like the government forcing us to take a vaccine. I have a problem with the government telling people they can't do something. If a business wants to require vaccines, let them. If they don't, that's good too. The market will always respond. Let the market speak. That's freedom, Ed. That's what you're talking about, right? People can make decisions for themselves. And I like that approach. I think that's the more appropriate approach. We have Alien Overlord says, Rob, as space race and we love to eat humans, we're disappointed when Trump started Space Force. We thought our plans were stopped. Now, after talks with Biden, we've reinstated plans. We'd like to thank Biden for his cooperation working with us. Your vax are really a food additive. We love. Oh, so the aliens are here. Oh, that's what it's all about. Oh, the aliens, folks. It's like buttering yourself up for your alien abduction and anal probing. Ugh. Sounds awful. Tony Fauci, that's a joke. That's not medical information. All right, YouTube, take it easy. We have Tony Fauci. Tony's here. A man never steps in the same river twice. You can't hold me accountable for comments of my past, Rob. I've evolved and shapeshifted following the science on a daily basis, and times even on a minute-to-minute basis. Quit living in the past, Rob. It's a good point. From Dr. Fauci, living in the past. Sorry for holding him accountable to his prior statements. 503 Unlimited said, Oregon is trying to get rid of hunting for wild game. Wait until the COVID lives in the deer. Yeah, we have Miss Lucky says, since we have such good science, why are they not promoting good health? Exercise, food, vitamin D, nice sleep. It's a good point. Same point Joe Rogan made. Same point I've been making for 2 years now. YouTube is misinformation thank you, Miss Lucky. YouTube is misinformation in the House says. YouTube is a purveyor of medical information around COVID. Hope the people at YouTube get humiliated and exposed as frauds. People, you should be using uBlock, Origin, Scripps, Rumble, Ramps, Locals. Punish YouTube for giving Robert a strike. Listen, YouTube, look, they came around. They put us back on. I'm happy about it, that we're back in business. I know mistakes happen, but shouldn't be happening. Vianticus says, people are laughing about people losing their jobs from not getting a shot. Meanwhile, Amazon is offering degrees as a hiring bonus. Am I the only one seeing this disconnect? Also, if businesses close because they want people to have the jab, then who wins in the end? The banks. BlackRock is ready to buy your business and your property. There's a lot for sale right now. Pennies on the dollar if you've got the money and you got the power. We're seeing them gobble it up. 503 Unlimited says, how long did it take for the thalidomide to show it impacted children? I'll wait a minimum 5 years for the mRNA vax. That's from Thunder 7. Sounds pretty reasonable. We have another one from Sweet Po Tato. Rumble over here crying because it loved you all along and you took YouTube back instead. But yeah, the booster shots are the wake-up call. A lot of people signed up for shots 1 and 2, no problem. But wait, I don't want 3. I apologize on Rumble. I know I have sort of been out of it today, and I just didn't connect the software to Rumble. And once I press live, I can't go back and do it. So we're still going to upload the clips over there. You're right. Bad form, though. Really bad form. I apologize, Rumble. I apologize. Monster One says, quick question. If employers fire workers for not being vaxxed, this is ultimately ruled unconstitutional. Would employees have a wrongful termination case? I mean, I'm not an employment lawyer, right? You always can bring a claim against somebody. Whether you succeed on that claim is a whole different story. So, certainly employees who were terminated could go back and, file a claim against their old boss. Maybe. Now, if that happened, the question would be, what would that cost? You'd have to hire a lawyer to do that. You sort of mess up your life and your new job. And so oftentimes those are not the best courses of action. Now, if you're somebody who is in a position, you've been working there for a long period of time, a lot of pros and cons to that. But I think the better thing would be to not get fired, right? To stay in your job, the place that you want to be, communicate to the people there about your concerns, and do what you can to introduce a little bit of that friction so that you don't get fired. How about another one from Jeremy Matrita says, Rob, I have a highly refined sense of hearing, and my theory is that you have been live streaming regularly enough that your vocal cords are transforming. You were starting to sound like a professional announcer or commentator, which by definition you actually are. Glad we survived the political strike. Your expert research and well-crafted arguments are capable of withstanding scrutiny from one of the most powerful organizations in the world. That's from Jeremy. That's a nice comment. It's a very nice way to frame it as a glass half full, which I think is always appropriate. And anytime there's a little bit of a setback, my gears get turned into my head. I go, okay, how can we make sure this doesn't happen again and, level things up a little bit? So I try to also look at it as a half full. Now, my voice, Jeremy, I don't know if it's changing, but it feels like I have, a little bit of phlegm kind of right in here. It's all good. I'm used to that. We have Christiana says, rabies has animal reserves. Do we make kids get rabies vaccinations? I don't think so, do we? I don't know. I don't know if I've ever had one. Osok says, Rob, I thought OSHA was a non-government agency. OSHA officials can work to stop if they find a severe risk on site, can order work to stop. But contrary to popular belief, they don't have the authority to shut down a business entirely. Only a court order can do that. When did they get the power to run with COVID? Well, they're using that very obscure rule that enables them to do so. And it was something that was struck down previously, I think back in the 1980s, when they were using it for asbestos. And so they're going to try to do that again. We'll see what the courts do with it, but hopefully they dump it. Vientica says, you can have a mild case of anything. I once had a mild case of death. I went to Miracle Max's, and he fixed me right up. By the way, I would trust Miracle Max. I don't know what that is. So got to be careful that we're not promoting horse dewormers on here. We have Nadarb says, I don't want to hear one more word from anyone about how big bad Russia is an oppressive regime. He made a point to make it clear to the people and the media he would not be doing a vax mandate. We are officially less free than Russia. And you know our capital gains tax is going to be higher than China's soon. So you're going to be getting it from multiple ends in this country. Confession through projection. The people who believe Fauci and other doctors about COVID science being fixed is in a cult and accuses us as a cult about them opposing confession through projection. Science changes and not fixed like a cult. However, something that close is fixed. Thermodynamics, where you can't have a 100% efficient car engine. That was confession through projection. Interesting comment there. Not sure. Okay. All right. So we've got a couple more here before we wrap up with some super chats and then get into the next segment. We have It's Ed says, DDT is a lifesaver. It was banned after the book A Silent Spring was published. It was a flawed study about weaker eggshells causing bird populations to decline. The weaker shells were believed to be caused by the DDT. It was disproven over and over again. Because of the ban, millions died, more so in third world countries. Funny how the people that ban things never have to deal with the consequences. It's the impoverished people that have to deal with those decisions. Even if it were true about DDT, it was my child's life or a population of the birds. Let the birds die. Sorry, but not sorry. That's from It's Ed. Thanks, It's Ed, with the nice DDT comment. We have former LEO says, what this country needs is an involuntary 5150 admission, then the 25th Amendment from former LEO. We have Harambe in the house says, isn't it bad enough you put us in cages? Now you're giving us COVID? Oh, the humanity. Harambe, poor Harambe. Can you believe that, what they did to Harambe? Terrible. Schnookum says, remember before AIDS, the police did not wear PPE. What will they wear for COVID? They're wearing face masks. Vientica says, anyone catch that video of Fauci from 2018 when he was saying that it's better if you work out and take care of yourself so you can fight off diseases? Yeah, I think I bookmarked that, Vientica, because I saw that today. Yeah, he was having a conversation with somebody in 2019, and the journalist was like, listen, I'm freaked out about the virus. What should I be doing? Should I be distancing or masking? No, don't do anything. Sleep well. Eat. Exercise. Get good nutrition. Now, it's just, don't do any of that stuff. It's just go and just take a shot. That's it. Apparently that other stuff isn't important anymore. Morpheus is here. Not in the new Matrix, unfortunately. Follow the white deer, Rob. Get that red pill. We have another one from Savdi says, interesting details of the Atlanta zoo gorillas. They are getting monoclonal antibodies. The article states, while humans are known to be able to transmit the virus to animals such as gorillas, and these cases have occurred at other zoos, there is currently no data to suggest that zoo animals can transmit the virus to humans. So how can bats? Well, because those weren't actually bats. Those were petri dishes in the Wuhan lab of virology. They just said they were bats, but they were actually petri dishes. Osak says, Rob, with the amount of changes being pushed so fast, is this the plan to undermine the nation state to move towards globalism? I think, yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think that's a good assessment. Thunder7 says, hey, Rob, please take hot water, lemon, ginger, honey when you leave here. Quick question, please. Isn't it discrimination to mandate some groups to take the jab but not others? None of the 1 million illegals are being forced, or the politicians, but the military and police are. Yeah, I think you're right about that, Thunder7. And that's why when we were going through this last week, on one of my slides, I had what I refer to as equal protection under the law, right? Some people are more protected than other people. The vaxxed get certain privileges that the unvaxxed don't get. And to me, in an America where we have a constitution that doesn't allow for those distinguishments, that's inappropriate. So I do think it's discriminatory. I think it's a violation of equal protection, a violation of due process, and I'd like to see what the courts say about it. Nancy Pelosi says, I love COVID and you also, Rob. Moi. Ugh. Now I'm going to throw up in addition to my sickness. Joe Rogan says you're welcome, Rob. Yeah, Joe Rogan didn't retweet me, unfortunately, which was a little bit, oh well, a little bit of a bummer. Schnookum says, I believe the even WHO took DDT off the banned chemicals list finality due to the science. That was from Schnookums. Let's see what else we've got. We've got Over on YouTube, couple super chats came in. Ronnie Cole said, Rob is such a criminal, which we got that at the beginning, which is absolutely true. I know. Harmful, dangerous, criminal, got it all. Racist, white supremacist, neo-Nazi, I believe. All those, got them all. Got them all. We have Terry Malicote says, hi, Rob, been wanting to give you a little thank you gift for all of your hard work. Keep up the excellent content. Well, thank you, Terry. That's very nice of you. Thank you for sending that over. It's a very nice gift, and I appreciate it. We have another one from Just Cows. Says, I met Ron in Florida on 9/11 on Saturday. Amazing guy. Must be talking about Ronnie Cole, who's in the house, which is great. We're just bringing people together on the show. I love it. I keep talking about a community. I'm not joking about it. We have Look2G says, has none of these authorities realized that their pets are carriers of COVID? Why isn't Fauci discussing the need to pursue euthanasia on Fluffy? It's a good question. How do you miss that? LOL, just kidding. I'm not. Yeah, I mean, Fauci's, look, if he's dead serious about this, all of his dogs and animals, they got to go. Sorry. They can be rehomed, you know. But he's concerned about this stuff. All right. So that was it over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com and YouTube. I want to thank everybody who's chatting away over there. Look2G, Arctuarians. We've got Me Love Dogs in the house, Radicy on Locals. Over on YouTube, shout outs to DT Equestrian. We have, that's a hell of a name. We have Marcia Jones. We have Sean Bray. We have Zorro, Lynn Job, Crystal Owen. Shout outs to everybody. Thank you for all of your support. All right, we're going to move into the next segment after I take a quick cough break. All right, and so today we're talking about, 9/11. I was sick as a dog and I couldn't stream or do anything on 9/11. But that's all right. We're going to talk about some new FBI documents that just came out. The FBI, on the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 tragedy, released new documents. And you might think, well, that's a good thing, because many people have had a lot of questions about 9/11 for a long period of time. In particular, was Saudi Arabia involved in this? Were the Saudis complicit in the 9/11 hijackings? Many people have speculated yes. Many people have speculated no. The Saudis have said for a long time they had nothing to do with it. And George Bush and many people believe them, and they go over there and they sort of kiss the ring, do the bow, and the entire grift continues on. The FBI released some new documents purporting to show a little bit more what's going on there. The idea being that maybe some of the Saudi nationals were actually on U.S. soil helping the hijackers back on 9/11. So when the FBI is floating these documents around, you think, that's great. I'd love to see those. I'd love to read those. That was my experience. That's how I felt about it. And so when I got the document, I thought, great, this will be fun. And then this is what the document looks like. It's 17 pages, 16 in total. You'll notice very, very heavily redacted. You can see FBI personnel redaction right here. We've got contact redactions, approval redactions, case ID redactions. The whole thing's basically redacted, the entire document. Now, we're going to go through it briefly, but before we do, quick background over from The Guardian. And I also want to mention this. This is a couple things here before we move on. I forgot the title of this document. Encore, Investigation Update, Review and Analysis. When did this come out? 2016. April 4th, 2016. So it has been available for a long period of time, happened way after 2001, and it is seriously redacted. This is one document, release of FBI electronic communication dated April 4th, pursuant to executive order. So Joe Biden came out, released this document. The entire thing is basically, redacted. It's kind of crazy, but they give you this little legend here, this key. If it has 2 pluses, it's FBI administrative information. If it has a star or an asterisk, it's FBI portion markings. They have names of personnel that are marked. And then we have information restricted from public release. Why? By the Privacy Act. Going to only be released pursuant to litigation. This PII. It's going to be a big chunk of this document. So before we get into it, let's take a quick look at what the FBI had to say about it. So they released a newly declassified 16-page document saying that it provides logistical support to 2 of the Saudi hijackers in the lead up to the 9/11 terrorist attacks. Describes contacts the hijackers had with Saudi associates in the U.S., but offers no evidence that the Saudi government was complicit in the plot. Oh, man. Is that under the redactions, or is that in the other documents that they didn't redact? The document released on the 20th anniversary of the attacks the first investigative record to be disclosed since Joe Biden ordered a declassification review of materials that for years have remained out of public view. The president had encountered pressure from victims, people. Yeah, there were a lot of families that have sort of been really pressuring the U.S. government to get these documents and release more of the data surrounding 9/11. You've seen many of these people, even on Tucker Carlson's show and elsewhere, that just want answers. It's been 20 years. Can we get some, maybe, about any of this stuff? So they've been filing. Joe Biden comes into office. Yeah, we're going to give you some stuff. We're going to look at it and see what's in there. The Saudi government, according to The Guardian, has always denied involvement. Saudi embassy in Washington said on Wednesday that it supported a full declassification of the records to end the baseless allegations. The embassy said any allegation that Saudi Arabia was complicit was categorically false. Biden last week ordered the Justice Department and other agencies to conduct a declassification review of the documents and release them over the next 6 months. 16 pages came out on the anniversary. Heavily redacted report describes a 2015 interview with a person who was applying for citizenship, U.S. citizenship, and years earlier had repeated contacts with Saudi nationals who investigators said provided significant logistical support to several of the hijackers. Documents are being released at a politically delicate time for the U.S. Two nations have forged a strategic alliance to counter terrorism matters. The Biden administration also went after them over Khashoggi, but drew criticism from the Democrats for not directly punishing them. Okay, so this is that group, right? This is the Saudis. Same people that all of our presidents go over there and they sort of kiss the ring, and they've always been kind of held hostage by Saudi oil, Saudi money, whatever it is. And now there is a document that's out that's supposedly supposed to show us whether this thing was conducted by them. Here is one page of it. You can see that it says the Encore investigation, April 4th, 2016. It's an update regarding an interview and associated analysis to his pending U.S. citizen application. They're talking about this person who's applying for the application, statements regarding the circumstances, his contact with persons who provided logistical support to 9/11. All right. So I'm not going to go through this in too much detail. You can see what it looks like, right? Look at this. It's hard to even read the document. Redaction here, PII. We have two pluses here. It's redacted through and through. They have an interview from November 2015. And they say that in 2015, multiple attempts were made to ascertain whether there was a meeting that took place. There were numerous specific details regarding education, excellent recall of specific minor details, talking about all of these different conversations. They claim that in subsequent to his November 2015 interview, no one ever knew he discussed 9/11. Okay, you can't even read this because it's so redacted. Isn't it great that our brothers are fighting? Yes, but what comes after that? I don't know. A separate source whose reporting proved to be reliable in the past advised blank was very, very vocal against Christians, Jews, and other enemies of Islam. Reference blank, dated blank. Other reporting stated that the Saudi consul general in LA wanted to fire blank for storage and distribution of extremist Muslim literature. Reference blank, blank. And so the point here, folks, is it just goes on and on. Right, this is what it looks like. Here's another page. Bayomi was a Saudi citizen, treated with great respect inside the Saudi consulate. Somebody said he had very high status when he entered the building. Again, redacted. FBI, redacted. Was a personal friend of blank name blank. Also, investigation predicted against redacted. So, 2 cent redacted. A whole paragraph redacted over here. Then we get over here. Describe the consulate working as a blank. College students in the U.S. providing translation assistance. One or more of... All right. So, let's see if there's anything else good in here. There is significant phone connectivity between somebody and somebody else prior to or directly in following key events of logistic assistance provided by blank to Hazmi and Midar. This pattern of phone connectivity is not identifiable prior to the hijackers' arrival in Los Angeles, does not occur between blank and blank after the hijackers depart California. All right. Describe the hijackers as two very significant people. So what they're talking about, folks, This is the most annoying document I've read on this show. They're talking about people who are sort of being funneled into the United States, very high status people, two very significant people within the Saudi consulate who are giving all sorts of status. And so there's all of these relationships that the feds are going to tell us, they're giving us information. Look at this document. Another page. Culver City, anything that's worthwhile, it's gone. Here's another page. Also gone. Statements in 2003, reference numbers. Okay, so it's just a bunch of nonsense. I'm not going to spend more time trying to butcher myself reading through this. You can see what it is. Communications analysis reveals that these phones were subscribed to by whatever, the owners of the phones or whoever. Nothing even interesting in here. All right, let's see if you have any questions on this topic. Over from watching let's just go to the chat. Let's go to the chat. This document's terrible. Let's see if there's any thoughts in the chat, and then we're going to go into the last segment. You can't read it. That's the whole point of the segment, right? The U.S. government, it's been 20 years. No documents. They give us some documents, and it's all redacted. No information is in there. Families don't get anything out of it. Joe Biden gets to check the box. Yeah, I ordered an intelligence conversation, and we get nothing out of it. A couple questions here before we move on into the last segment. Jeremy Nadler says, Rob, always remember Antifa and the Taliban are just miss. That's from Jerry Nadler. Isn't the U.S. dollar based on Saudi oil? That's from OSOC. Thank you, OSOC, for that. I don't know. I can't tell. Who knows? We have another one. Sergeant Bob says, President Trump didn't kiss no stinking Saudi ring. That's from Sergeant Bob. All right, so we're going to thank you, Sergeant Bob. We're just going to leave that segment right there. Not happy with that segment. But that's okay. Not every segment's going to be a good one. That one was a frustrating one to read. All right, so we're going to move into the last segment of the day before we wrap it up. Let's see what else we have. Oh, that's right. If you like true crime, if you like watching stories where there is just a never-ending catastrophe slowly unrolling in front of your eyes, you're going to like this story. This is involving a judge from the Caroline County Circuit Court out of Maryland. His name is Judge Jonathan Newell. You can see here, this was a press release from the Department of Justice. They posted this Friday, September 10th. And I want to pay close attention to a couple things here. Coming out of Baltimore, Maryland, in this first paragraph, we see something interesting. A lot of big names here. The statement is regarding the death of this judge, Caroline County Circuit Judge Jonathan Newell, no longer with us. A lot of people involved in releasing this statement. Let's see who's here. We have U.S. State Attorney for the District of Maryland, Jonathan Lenziner. We have Special Agent in Charge, Thomas of the FBI. We have the Baltimore Field Office. We have the Superintendent of the Maryland State Police. We have the state's attorney. We have the Caroline County State Attorney. A lot of people involved. All involved in the death, reporting the death of Jonathan Newell. They say, this morning, agents with the FBI went to the residence of Judge Newell, age 50, of Henderson, Maryland, to arrest him on a federal criminal complaint filed on September 9th. Upon entering the residence, they found him suffering from an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound, pronounced dead at 6:43 a.m. Maryland State Police are going to lead the investigation into the apparent suicide. Criminal complaint has been publicly sealed, unavailable. It is now available. We're going to take a look at this. So FBI and basically everybody else from Maryland is saying, this person is dead. We're going to be investigating this. Here is the unsealed complaint. Where is Caroline County Circuit Court? Well, it's right in between Washington and Delaware. We know a couple people who travel back and forth. Joe Biden's in Washington. Joe Biden flies to Delaware pretty regularly. So he's passing right over this court. Right here, you can see this. The Caroline County Circuit Court, located right in Maryland. This is what it looks like. You can see kind of a nice old court building. Something probably been around for quite some time. The Caroline Courthouse, you can see right here. This is the judge. If you go over to the Maryland government website, they've already removed him. His term ended in 2021. You can see Jonathan G. Newell, County Administrative Judge, from August 2nd, 2016 to September 10th, 2021. They've updated the bio. Before that, he was a member of the Drug and Alcohol Abuse Council for about 5 years. He was the state's attorney for about 13 years. He was a prosecutor. Before that, he was a public defender. So he's been in Maryland law for a long period of time. He's born in Chestertown, Maryland. Went to law school, Washington Lee University. Died in Henderson, Maryland, September 10th, 2021. You see the court updated the website. This is Jonathan Newell. And he was a judge, as we know. You can see him down here, active judge. This was updated on March 25th, 2021. So he's been around for some time. And we're going to take a look at the criminal complaint. Now, this complaint involves a judge being charged with crimes, pretty serious crimes. Let's take a look. Criminal complaint. 1 count, exploitation of a child, sexual exploitation of a child. Interesting. Let's take a look. Says that on or about the dates of September 28, 2014, in the county of Caroline, signed off on by the judge. They've got an entire affidavit. So we're going to read through this. Let's go through it. We have the FBI agent, special agent, Rachel Korn, with the FBI. Been with the FBI since May 2016. Works a lot on child crimes. You can see that. Received FBI crimes against children training. Participated in the execution of numerous search warrants. Many of these involve the seizure of computers, cell phones, magnetic storage media. I look for online accounts. I do all sorts of things. As a federal agent, I'm authorized to investigate it. This affidavit is made because we need to go get this judge. On July 23rd, investigators from the Maryland State Police respond to a cabin. They go to a cabin in Fishing Creek, Maryland, regarding a minor who located a video camera in the bathroom of the cabin. After arriving at the cabin, investigators interviewed 2 minor males. So the judge is in a cabin in Maryland. FBI gets a call. There's a camera here. The first male, minor victim 1, born in 2006, provided the following information. July 2021, 2 minor males spent the night with the judge, Judge Newell, at his cabin in Maryland. Red flag number 1. On the morning of July 23rd, minor victim 1 entered the bathroom adjacent to the bedroom shower. After undressing, minor victim 1 observed what appeared to be a camera. Camera was on a shelf in the corner of a bathroom, inside a black utility crate. The lens of the camera was facing the shower. Minor victim 1 examined the camera, took photographs of it with his cell phone. He observed a green blinking light on the camera. He placed the camera back onto the original position and exited the bathroom. Then, minor victim 1 went to find minor victim number 2, born in 2007, to tell him about the camera. Shortly after minor victim 1 exited the bathroom, he then observed Newell enter the bathroom, then exit the bathroom carrying miscellaneous items. Then went right to his bedroom. Minor victim 1 and 2 re-entered the bathroom so that victim 1 could show the camera. Once inside, they found the camera was no longer in there. Newell grabbed the camera and bailed. Following the above events, they left the cabin and went on his boat. While on the boat, they used their cell phones, called their parents. Parents called the police. Minor victim 1 further advised that another adult male and 4 minor males were also in the cabin that night. 5 males, though, when they woke up, had already left. Investigators arrived at Newell's cabin on the same day. Newell was present when they arrived. He waived his Miranda rights, consented to do an interview. This is a judge. This is a judge who has sentenced people to jail and prison. Waived his rights and had an interview. Newell advised that the cabin had 10 members that had access to the cabin and that members come and go. Newell advised the members that he did not keep a log of the people who accessed the cabin. Newell denied placing a camera in the bathroom, denied noticing a camera in the bathroom. Okay. Didn't know. Sounds like there's a lot of other people in there. Yeah, anybody else could have put the camera there, I guess. Feds show up. Wasn't me. A lot of other people around. When presented with the following timeline, minor victim saw the camera. Newell used the bathroom. Minor entered the bathroom. Camera was no longer there. Newell replied, look, like I said, there were 6 other people here. Newell was presented with a picture of the camera. Newell stated he's never seen the camera before. Oh, okay. Very likely story. Let's see what else happened, shall we? After the interview concluded, Newell, then, the judge, was permitted to go to his bedroom to plug in his cell phone into a charger and make phone calls. Newell plugged in his phone into a charger that was plugged into the wall outlet directly next to the side of his bed. Newell sat on the bed, the head of the bed, as he plugged his phone into the wall. While he was on the phone, investigators observed him reach under the bed with his right hand on more than one occasion. Each time he reached under the bed, an investigator walked around the bed to get a better view of Newell. When the investigator got to Newell, Newell would push the phone charger into the wall outlet. At the time, investigator believed Newell was holding the charger into the wall outlet due to the short length of the cord. As this conduct continued, though, investigator noticed Newell reached directly under the bed below the outlet. Newell made these movements for a few seconds and then stretched his lower back by leaning forward. A few moments later, the investigator observed Newell's right hand in a closed fist. He was still talking on the phone, holding the phone with his left hand to his left ear. Shortly after, the investigator noticed Newell's right hand in a closed fist. Newell placed his right fist to his mouth and covered the bottom of his phone and mouth and began talking quietly. A few minutes later, the investigator heard a loud, distinguishable crunch from the area of Newell's mouth. After another minute or two, the investigator heard the same crunch again from Newell's mouth, followed by Newell immediately reaching for and drinking a cup located on his dresser. All right, so to recap that, he's going around trying to act like he's using his phone, maneuvering his hands around, and the FBI notices that he's on the phone, I think with his left hand, cups his right hand up, covers the phone to talk to somebody quietly, and then you hear a crunch and another crunch. And then he grabs a water and chugs it down as FBI agents are standing around him. Curious. Newell was asked to leave the bedroom, and Newell ended his phone call. After Newell walked away from the bed, the investigator observed what appeared to be an object under the bed, similar to the picture and the camera taken by minor victim 1. The object, a black box, was sitting on top of a white blanket or towel. Newell was with a second investigator in the living area. Newell asked the second investigator if he could obtain a cell phone charger from his bedroom. He walked into the bedroom, knelt down, removed a pair of shorts and a t-shirt from under the bed, then removed a white blanket from under the bed, stood up, turned around, and produced a small black rectangular box to the second investigator. He says, "This is what you're looking for." Place the box on top of the bedroom dresser. It's a black rectangular box with the word Zeta, made in China, inscribed on the back with a slot for the SD card. SD card slot was empty. The device appeared to be the same device that minor victim 1 had earlier in the morning. July 24th, then, investigators escorted Newell to a nearby hospital with a search warrant to do CT scans of his chest and abdomen and pelvis. The after-visit summary included the following: 18-millimeter linear, possibly metallic foreign object body within the small bowel. Diagnosis: foreign body ingestion. So he just took the memory card, chewed it up, swallowed it. FBI, we're going to get that card back there, buddy boy. Took him right over, took a picture, CT scan, found the memory card in his body. To date, 7 additional males, all born between 2002 and 2007, have been interviewed regarding their relationships with Newell. Most of the males have known him for some time, although one of the males is currently 18. All of them described being at the residence on at least one occasion. The males were minors when they were at Newell's residence. The males described showering at his residence. Nearly all of the males that while in the bathroom, Newell checked their bodies for ticks. At least 2 of the males stated they were naked when he checked them for ticks. One stated that he moved his own genitalia for Newell to look for ticks, and the other itself did not recall whether he touched their genitals. State search warrants were executed to include searches of his cabin. Numerous digital devices were seized from various locations. The forensic examination of the digital devices is currently ongoing. Among other digital items, a Toshiba external hard drive serial number made in the Philippines seized from a safe located in a den. Preliminary analysis of the external hard drive revealed numerous videos of minor males. In some videos, Newell is seen setting up the camera. He's got a folder that is edited. One of the subfolders contained videos of different victims in different angles. Different one is 5 minutes, 6 seconds long. Not going to get into that. It says, based upon the following, signed off on by Rachel S. Korn, FBI. You know, we dunk on the FBI a lot on this show. And they did a pretty good job on this case. We'll say they did a good job. And pretty well done on how they got that all taken care of. Let's see what you have to say about this. I told you it was a gruesome one. Let's see if there are any comments on this one over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Before we wrap this up, we have Osak says, Rob, go home and get better. We need you to get better to carry on the cause. I am getting better. There's going to be a day of this. I apologize for my voice. There's going to be a day of this. I have to work it out, and then we'll get back and we'll get better. I apologize for the voice. We have Sergeant Bob says, someone obviously tipped him off, the good old Judge Network. Looks like he entered his plea. Yeah, not with us anymore. 503 Unlimited says, I want to see this guy's digital forensics. No way this judge wasn't linked to other high-end pedos. Rob, you know well as I do, these guys are never alone. Is this something you can keep an eye on us for us all? I'll continue to follow the story, 503 Unlimited, but not sure we're going to see much else. Now, that's why everybody was involved in this thing, right? All of those people, everybody from Maryland was like, a judge? Like what other judges is this going? Is this systemic in some other way? It's just not good. Monster One says, what are your thoughts on lawyers who switch sides? Well, I don't like them. I like purebloods, like me, born for defense, bred by it, molded in the darkness for defense. Could, a prosecutor, how can you be a prosecutor and switch to the defense? You're a prosecutor, you're throwing people in jail for years. And then now suddenly you're about freedom and the Fourth Amendment and the Fifth Amendment? No, I don't like it. I personally think people who should enter law knowing which direction they intend to go. In my home time, there is one lawyer who started out as a public defender, eventually became the head of the public defender's office, and he switched, became a district attorney, ultimately becoming the senior judge. In my life, this one man has defended, prosecuted, and judged the same people. I think that is wrong. Yeah, I mean, look, there are lawyers who just treat lawyering like a job. Like Jen Psaki treats a press briefing as a press briefing. It is what it is, and she's just going to go out there and say whatever. Truth be damned, right? There are lawyers who are like that as well. A case is a case. Doesn't matter what it is. I'm just not that type of person. I wanted to be a prosecutor. I could have been a prosecutor. I was close. I mean, maybe I could have been. I don't know. But I think the law is an entity that is best when you're passionate about what you're doing. And I think it's hard to be passionate and then just flip sides. Like, I could never go be a prosecutor. Never now. So I don't know how other people can do that and sleep at night. Thunder 7 says, I wonder if they originally got the video of him secretly taping young boys in the shower. Got to be careful with it. Who else is involved in this ring? I don't know who else is involved in the ring, but it's probably big, right? It's probably something that is not good. We have Nadarb says, oddly enough, this isn't the first time that a high-ranking government official has been caught doing this type of stuff. Happens quite often for some weird reason. The corporate media chooses not to blow these stories up. They just end up going away after a while. Yeah, it's terrible. I don't know. Let's see. A couple others. Sergeant Bob says, street-wise cops would have saw that conduct as that which is destroying evidence. It seems federal agents don't have that wisdom. Street cops would have grabbed his hand right away. Yeah, Sergeant Bob. Yeah. Sounded very suspicious. Hunter Biden says, woo, that takes the focus off my laptop. That's comment of the day. So good. Yeah, it's so good. Can't believe I didn't think about that. We have Gulag Man says, I condemn CP. However, the judge is such a dummy that he did not use his Fifth and Sixth Amendment rights. The judge should have followed the Robert Gruler training course on law enforcement interaction. Remember Brett Bloom's Wisconsin children court judge charged with CP used to work his email, used his work email and not use, yeah, right. The law enforcement interaction training is available over at gumroad.com/Robert Gruler. We have I'm Not Gas says, ignoring the disgusting nature of the crime, the part where he is literally eating an SD card in front of an FBI agent is pretty funny. It's wild, right? It's a wild thing. It's a judge, okay? And it's not like, it's not like you've seen those videos on the side of the road where the guy downs the bag of cocaine or whatever. And okay, right? This is an SD card. This is a judge. This is FBI agents in his home. It's like insane. Joe Biden says, yeah, but was he vaccinated though? Was that a COVID death? Probably a COVID death. Yeah, he wasn't. It's probably attribute that to a COVID. Yeah. The last villain says, I want to know who these other men are. We will never know. Smells like a capital D. That was from the last villain. Gulag Man says, gosh, what with people trying to destroy evidence when law enforcement is present instead of before? If you have any sensitive data hidden in an encrypted volume folder or hardware USB, shred any incriminating. I can't encourage a destruction of evidence on this show. I'm Not Gas says, as a defense attorney, how would you defend this guy with such a bad fact pattern? Well, there's nothing to defend anymore, right? There's not going to be a crime. He's now dead, so there's nothing to charge there. But, in a case like that, so first of all, in situations like this, when the fact patterns are so bad, a lot of what a lawyer does is sort of helping the family in these situations, right? So even if this were involved, right, I've been in situations, I've represented cases, not quite like this with the judge, but I've worked on cases that have been, gruesome. And a lot of what you do at that moment is certainly defend your client to the maximum ability. But often cases, especially when it involves people involved in children crimes, a lot of the time what they do is they just talk about it. They just open up. They tell the police everything. I have this, I have this, I have this, I have this, I have this. It's all over here. And in those cases, it's really hard to do much for it. But a lot of it has to do with dealing with the family, right? Oftentimes, right, this guy might have been married, might have kids, probably was seen as a pillar of his community, probably somebody who's like well-respected, a judge. And so that whole community, it's like a little bomb went off. And so what a defense lawyer does, or what counsel does, is it helps facilitate everybody through this tremendous grief. And so it's a little bit different in really bad situations like this. Now, off the cuff, right, some of the other defenses, until he incriminated himself, would have been, there were 7 other people there. He should have not said anything. And I'm not trying to defend a pedophile, but, he should have never said anything. He should have invoked his rights, and he didn't do that. Which is kind of my point. Judges know better, and even he didn't invoke his rights. Which is why we created the 1, 2, 3 rule over at gumroad.com/Robert Gruler. He should have used rule number 1. I'm not answering those questions. Sorry. Should have said that to the FBI agents. Maybe he'd still be alive. Now, Vientikis says, well, seems like he wasn't Epsteined. No, it sounds like, I think he took care of that one. Former LEO says, get that hand beneath the Adam's apple. It's worked in the past. And kind of just shove it right in there and stop it from going down. We have Gulag Man Sense. When is it illegal to shred evidence before a subpoena? Well, at that moment, I'm not sure if they had a search warrant or not, but it was evidence of criminality. Monster One says the other men equals Hunter Biden. Yeah. Osak says, would this affect any case the judge had? It could. It could, like if the judge did something in a prior case, like improper sentencing, or did something. There's a mechanism for something called post-conviction relief. So if those people had already been convicted, then they may be able to reopen that if the judge did something improper. If that's not the case, if it's just an open case in front of this judge, they're all just going to get reassigned to new judges. It shouldn't be that big of a deal, other than, the trauma of, whoa, that happened in this courtroom in our town since 2014. That's insane. Sergeant Bob is right, according to 3 Girlies, says, takes feds to be that stupid. Street cops would never have let him sit on his phone, let alone get anywhere near that SD card. How many times did they have to go around his bed to figure out what he was doing? Only took the sound of him crunching in order for him to figure out he was eating something. Completely ridiculous. It's a good point, 3 Girlies. I wasn't there. It's a good point, but you have to wonder if they would be a little bit sort of on their heels because it is a judge. But I mean, they had him kind of dead to rights. All right. We have Christiana says, what is it with these powerful people and children? Kids are tiny, underdeveloped humans. They stink like dirt and kid breath and kid sweat. I find it all so gross and incomprehensible. Stories like these make QAnon seem a little bit more rational. Sitting judge was doing that. Radicy says, I was carting kids around earlier. Will you be posting the meaty slides here or on YouTube? They're in the slides. They're not that meaty. I mean, I kind of covered some of it. They just went in a little bit into the into some of that stuff that I was sort of riffing off on the vaccines. They're in the current slide deck, which are available over at Locals. So go check them out there. They're not that meaty. They're just they sort of cross that line into medical information, and so that's why I wouldn't have talked about. I didn't talk about them here on YouTube. I would have talked about them on Locals. I would have loved to have done that, but my voice is giving out. Let's see. We have Sergeant Bob says, a great commentary on the defense, all logical and compassionate for the family. Yeah. Sergeant Bob knows, right? Sergeant Bob has probably worked with a lot of defense lawyers, probably been the officer on cases where the defendant is right, not much you can do for him. And so if you're a defense attorney at that moment, there is a lot of good you can do to deal with a very terrible situation. And so that's what we try to do. Those were great questions from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Let's see what we've got over on YouTube. Had a couple more come in from Lava Java Lava says, get some rest, Rob. I'm going to do that right after the show. Look 2G says, it doesn't seem like this was the first judge who was doing something like this. Wasn't there another one last year? Thanks so much for your work, Rob. Thank you, Look 2G. Thanks for the super chat and for being here. I don't recall if there was another one. You know, this is like out of a movie. Like there are movies like this that are just like, the worst. And so terrible story to share, but something that was very interesting. You know, this is stuff that is going on in our society. Those were all the questions from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. I want to thank everybody who joined. Did not get the moment to update this slide today, but big thanks to everybody who signed up and joined our community last week. We have our monthly Locals meetup coming up Saturday, October 2nd from 7 to 8 p.m. It's a lot of fun. We hope you join us over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And that, my friends, is it for me for the day. I'm going to go take some cough medicine. Get to bed early tonight. Take my medicine. Somebody suggested, some ginger, turmeric, vitamins. I'm going to eat it all up. And we're going to be back here and ready to rock and roll tomorrow. Hopefully the voice has cleaned up just a little bit. Thank you so much for enduring the show with me today. We'll be back here tomorrow, same time, same place, same location. 4 p.m. Arizona time, 5 p.m. Mountain, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. on the East Coast. And for that one Florida man. Everybody else have a tremendous evening. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.